Huh. Makes better sense at least. To a normal person, your head should have been caved in by now. Are you now realizing just how doomed you are? How this petty fight is a lost cause? Naja cackled with a cynical grin. Ha! No, not at all. I just have to stop playing with my food is all. Naja lunged forward, using the strength of all her limbs to dash towards Solaire at full speed. Ah, fine. Fall like the rest. Is he regenerating? Is that what we're talking about here? His wounds are healing? Yo, this guy is final boss level. He deserves to be the emperor for like talking just based on feats here. Solaire mapped out his attack. He readied himself for a lunge from her. He would use her own momentum against her and grapple her to the ground. He waited patiently for her to outstretch her mighty arms to do so. Naya's arms reached out for him, but she stopped dead in her tracks and snatched into his wrist instead, sinking her fangs into his bicep. His skin was as hard as rocks. Naja, however, was drunk with rage. Her carnivorous fangs pierced into the Ember's flesh. Shocked at her bizarre tactics, Solaire recoiled in pain as he started to bleed out. An agonizing roar erupted from him. Roar! Yeah, can't do that. Can't believe this fight has been going for 2 episodes. The conflict continued into the night. Both Imperials and clansmen erupted into a cheer every time the battle would fall to their side. Within the Imperial encampment, General Pax oversaw preparations for his men. He dismissed his war council as the Blue Falcon King. Samuel landed beside him. Your Majesty. General? My men have relayed the situation to all of our captains within the area. As instructed, we've also set up more decoy camps to throw the enemy off, as well as... A roaring applause broke through Samuel's conversation. He jerked his head to where it was coming from. He stammered with complete awe. Is he still fighting that beast? The Falcon was taken aback at the unruly sight of the Lion Emperor putting the massive lioness into a headlock. The general sighed and nodded. I think he met his match. In terms of stubbornness, neither have shown signs of fatigue yet. But why though? With what he's capable of, he'd, like I said, he's stubborn like this. The king looked at him in disbelief. Naja, that beast you see there, was boasting about honor constantly to him. She must have struck something in him to go along with this. Samuel exhausted a long-winded sigh. We're going to be here all night, aren't we? If you're worried about an ambush, we've had patrols on every side of our camp. Pax pointed his cane toward the Scaran war party. So far, they haven't moved at all since the fight began. Lieutenant Morn has been keeping tabs with his forces surveying the fight. So far, no one has intervened the fight. Oh, lovely. We're wasting time and resources, but saving face with a bunch of savages. Oh, I don't like this guy, fam. We're going to kill them the worst were to happen, yes? Pax scoffed out and laughed. You don't have faith in our emperor? Oh, I've had faith in that bastard since we were children, but I'm sure the rest of the empire would react the same as I if he loses. The war might as well be at an end if these savages return home unscathed. The Valar legacy will be dirt to the common folk. The general nods at the king's statement. His talons tap across his cane, deep in thought. Yes, well, there is a fresh batch of tea in his tent if you want any. Otherwise, take a seat while history gets made. Samuel peered over the general in silence, his blue feathers ruffled up before sighing. I suppose this is the safest place to be. Out in the front lines anyway. He points to the Emperor's tent. Since he's not using it right now, I'll sleep in his bed tonight. I should advise you, he's been shedding during our travels. Just to let you know. The king rolled his eyes with his head tilted up. I'll be sure to leave a feather or two for him in return then. The king and general parted the ways for the night, leaving Pax to observe the fight from afar. Night swept over the land with the roaring crowd slowly dying out. It's morning! Oh my god, they're still fighting. What time is it gonna take 10 episodes? Day broke into the morning sky and awakened the slumbering masses. Lieutenant Morn staggered from his tent, yawning and rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Oh, coffee. He roamed through the encampment and makes his way to a bonfire. Need my... He yawned heavily while his beefy fingers clasped out for anything to grab onto that felt like a coffee mug. Soldiers around the campfire witnessed the lieutenant approaching and whipped up a hot mug for him from the kennel. Thanks. He brought the mug to his lips but froze in awe. His attention was drawn to the fighting area where Solaire and Naja continued to fight. Naja had placed Solaire in a leg lock. Son of a bitch! They're still going at it? All of the soldiers around the campfire looked to one another before back at their lieutenant. Guess I can't be too surprised with this. The fact I woke up alive to the smell of eggs and bacon should have indicated something. But still, I would have figured she'd be dead by now. He took a drink of his coffee. His face cringes from the bitter taste. Blah! We ran out of the good stuff, huh? His soldier nodded at his question. Morn sighed again and took a seat beside his men. He eyed the bonfire, currently sizzling up bacon and eggs. Make my eggs scramble when it gets to my turn. He stared down at his coffee mug while his meal was being made. He pulled a wine pouch from his side and uncorked it over his drink. Nothing came out. He grumbled a puff of steam from his nostrils. Well, you guys feel like fighting? I feel like fighting today. The Emperor can't have all the fun with his Shaskarans, right? He peered off the Shaskaran camp and saw none had made any attempt at making a meal yet. Most of them were still spectating around the fighting area. How about you boys start fanning our delicious food their way? Let their noses do the talking once they catch wind of our goods. Ha! He teasingly fanned his hand over the bacon to throw its scent over. How do you guys reckon it'll be till they break and start demanding for scraps? An arrow impaled into the log he was sitting on just inches away from his leg. Moore and his men gawked at the arrow, still vibrating from the force of the impact. They all shot their attention to where it had come from. Out in the far reaches of the Shaskaran camp, an archer was accompanied by a white wolf, Zuta. The moment Morn met his eyes, Zuta points at the arrow. Strung to the neck of an arrow was a piece of parchment. Morn snapped his fingers and orders a soldier to open it for him, all while his gaze never left Zuta. Oh my god, sleep is tired, man. I'm going this in one fell swoop. My complaint is I'm just tired. That's it. I'm sorry for that. The soldier pulled the note up for Morn to see. The writing was scrappy but legible. Let's talk. Let me calm down here. The bull lieutenant huffed a chuckle out at the notion. He saw something else written at the bottom of the note. We have booze. He jolted up and peered at Zuta, now with his arm held high with a bottle of wine in his paw. Morn churned and cracked his neck before howling to his men. He ordered out an envoy to meet with Zuta, insisting any weapons so be discarded if he were to cross over. Zuta obliged and met with Morn at his campfire. The white wolf outstretched his arm with bottle in hand. Morn raised a brow from the blunt offer. Yo, that's 3D fire right there, just slapped in there. And properly green screened, I guess, composited in. Yep. The white wolf, yeah, no, I read that. Be my guest and pour one for yourself. Zuta huffed out a sigh. More poison for me then. He sank his fangs into the cork of the bottle and ripped it off, spitting it into the bonfire. He held the bottle overhead and drizzled the red wine down his muzzle. Red streaks stained his dirty white fur. Gripping the bottle by the neck, he shoved it into Morn's face. Smarmy, aren't you? Morn snatched the bottle out of Zuta's paw. He sniffed the contents inside. I never took you lot to be the talkative types. Your clan normally talks with tooth, fist, and nails first. He took a small sip of the drink and tattered his lips at the foreign taste. He took another sip. While the bull smacked his lips to his wine tasting, the wolf plopped himself on a log and chimed in. Talking is always an option. It's very scarce where we live is all. Morn began to inhale their drink. I can bash your teeth in now if you'd like. Morn held a finger up to Zuta whilst finishing a swig. A satisfying sigh emerged out of him. Pull something like that on me now and you might become my new best friend. He flung the empty bottle into the bonfire. But I digress. There'd be hell to pay if the Emperor found I started a fight during his negotiations. And I'm sure you'd meet the same end with Naja. Gesundheit. Is it Gesundheit? Your leader wouldn't be too keen on you starting a fight, specifically after her whole honor banter. He finished off the drink before slamming it into the bonfire. So imagine my surprise when a Shaskaran, one of the most savage fighters within the war, wanders up to me and says he wants to talk. Tell me why I shouldn't put a muzzle on you now. Well, we've got more kegs of wine to barter out. Okay, give me 2 reasons to not muzzle you. All of the encompassing soldiers leered over Zuta. Just a day without fighting is all we can offer. Is Shaskaran who doesn't want to fight? Zuta solemnly nodded. Morn leaned in towards Zuta. The infamous Shaskaran people, notorious for cloth lining people's heads off, suddenly wants to just talk. Zuta stared coldly at the bull. You know how many of her kind butchered my men? Any clue how many I tore into myself? Zuta tried to butt in, but Morn charged on. The thing I noticed with you lot, you all carry a look in your eyes, a bloodlust you so happily bring wherever you go. The brooding bull unlatched his warhammer off his back and impaled the spike end into the ground. His eyes looked firmly over the wolf, who didn't express any concern at his threat. So what is your excuse for me not to break your legs today, eh? Ears narrowed back, Zuta leaned from his seat to Morn. Do I hold that same savage look in my eyes to you? Heh, can't say you do. Then again, it's still early in the morning. I'm sure you'll work up an appetite. If anything, I'm just tired. We are all tired. Zuta unstrapped a container of wine off his belt and took a swig from it. And that bloodlust? When you live with constant threats of others, it becomes a force of habit once the fighting begins. So take me by my words when I say, it was never personal, just how we handle things. He took a sip of his wine. Shaskaran life is that hard, huh? When we're not fighting over territories with one another, we're usually fighting over food. And ever since that blasted mountain blew its lid, most sources of food and water were all but gone from Outland. So yeah, the first group to offer us food was who we sided with in this war. That said, if you came to us first, I'm sure our alliance would have favored you just as well. It would have made this war a lot shorter for sure. His soldier handed Morn a plate of bacon and eggs. Those bastards must be feeding you well if you sided with them for this long, especially if you have all this wine you're willing to share. Zuta shrugged. You could say that, more or less. Morn raised a brow to Zuta, all while a strip of bacon hanging from his mouth. More or less. They give us our due shares, though we normally see ourselves in the right for more, and who's to say 2 guards protecting the royal winery will say no to a group of Shaskarans. Ah, so drinks are on King Regard, huh? Ha! No wonder it had an aftertaste of ass to it. Zuta wiped his lips after taking another swig of his personal wine. I'm just gonna check the time here. 2 minutes. Didn't seem to stop you from suckling it down. Morn stared him down. A hearty grin hooked across his maw while gnawing on the fat of the bacon. It's an acquired taste. Lord knows the number of asses we've had to kiss during this goddamn war. He ripped half the strip of bacon from his mouth and tossed it to Zuta. The wolf snatches it and looked at it mildly amused. There was some drool left over from the bull, but it smelled too crispy to ignore. He saluted the cheer to Morn before gnawing at a strip. If only negotiations were this simple instead. Just some wine, bacon, and a show. Everyone around it. That's actually pretty fun, yeah. That would be pretty cool. If only all the world leaders decided to put in a cage and fight to the death to fight over who's the right in the policies they wanted to add in. Or maybe the Congress and presidents, the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary branch fought it out in a cage, in an wait, was it the hectagon? Oh my god, I can't even fucking remember. In the cage, pretty much. In a fight. I'd watch that. Yeah. Everyone around the campfire glanced back over to the brawling lions. Naja at this point had pinned Solaire down to the ground with a headlock. She hissed out the roar as the Emperor sank his claws and fangs into her forearm. Morn chuckled at the resilience each lion held. His face hardened into a frown as he observed the Shaskaran crowd opposite from the fight, now dwindled down to a dozen spectators, where he spotted a small lion cub shouting at the top of her lungs. "Rip his head off! Tear him up, Mom!" So things are that bad in Shaskara that even your kids go to war with you. Zuta's ears perked up before turning back to Morn. He leered over him. "Better here with us than anywhere else. Your homeland is that fucked up, huh?" "Not exactly." Zuta steered from his seat and walked towards Morn. A few soldiers ready to block him, but Morn signaled them to cease. Zuta sat beside him and offered him the rest of his wine. Both watched Mijina. The idea of allies has always been a fuzzy subject for us. Even when we unified together for this war, every tribe chieftain was still fighting to be the superior clan leader. And as you can tell, Naja came out on top. Morn took a swig of Zuta's wine while processing the conversation. The spicy blend jolted him wide awake. "Ah, I get you. Better to be around Mommy and her friends than alone with some wannabe usurpers. Blah. Blah." He stuck out his tongue and found a strand of Zuta's fur left over from the drink. Zuta took the wine from him and took a sip before returning it to Morn. "It's probably for the best. If anything were to happen to her, Naja would most likely devastate all of Shaskara." "Yeah. My mom was always protective of me when I was young too." Zuta shook his head and leaned close into Morn. His yellow gaze stared dead into his brown eye. "No. There's no doubt in my mind she would commit genocide on an entire tribe if anyone touched Mijina. She becomes a completely different creature altogether when her motherly instincts kicks in." Morn looked at the wolf with a curious eye. "You're telling me she's been holding back this entire fight then? If your emperor is stupid enough to touch her daughter, he'll be dead in seconds." "Huh, yeah, keep telling yourself that." Zuta shrugged. "If it's proof you want, there's a bazaar northeast of here that we visited not far back. You can see the last guy that laid a hand on Mijina there." "Oh yeah? What happened?" He took a swig of wine, now fully invested in the white wolf. While we were replenishing our supplies, a stingy merchant swatted at Mijina's paw while she was looking at apples. Last thing he saw was a stone wall Naja slammed him into. Oof. I'd hate to be at his funeral if it was an open casket. Nah, last I heard he's still in the wall. Huh? Yeah, his entire body was embedded halfway into the wall. Taking him out would have ruined the wall's structural support. Yeah, I'm gonna end it right here. Sleepy's tired, everybody. I think this is like the end for me right here. Other than that, thank you for watching. I'll be seeing you in the next episode of Regal Tails. Bye!